Friendships That Flourish, the podcast, where we dive into the intricacies of building and nurturing meaningful connections that stand the test of time. I am your host, Regina Nicole, and friend. Join us as we explore friendship dynamics and finding your identity in friendship and finding your tribe. Today, here on the couch, we have our friend Shontell. She's a friend of mine, and she is a FAMU graduate, an author, an educator, a mother, and a wife. Welcome to the couch, Shontell.
Thank you, Gigi.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited for us to dive into this topic. So I always like to start each episode by asking, what does it mean to have a friendship that is flourishing?
What does it mean to have a friendship that is flourishing? Well, first, thank you for letting me join the couch and have the conversation. But what does it mean to have a friendship that is flourishing? To me, that means being intentional, recognizing if there are hiccups, how to, overcome those hiccups if they do arise, and, knowing your friend's whole self, meaning, I'm a wife, if they're a wife, knowing that no matter how deep our friendship is, they still have obligations to their husband, their family. Again, I'm a wife. I have friends that are single. Mm-hmm. So knowing that basically we each have a pie that we split up when life happens. Mm-hmm. And so knowing that, no matter what happens, you're just there for that person and that person's there for you. No matter the dynamics, because life is going to happen. Yeah. But for that friendship to flourish, really just going back to intentionality, just being very intentional and understanding and being okay to have uncomfortable conversations too. That's going to help you flourish. Any relationship, to me, that's going to help you flourish. And celebrating.
Yeah,
celebrating
that's good.
Everything.
That's good. I like that. It makes me think about grace, and being intentional. So with intentionality, like you said, because there are different dynamics between friends and we all share a different portion of a pie of life, having a level of grace, like you're a wife, I am not a wife. And so if there's a moment where I feel like I need you in a space, like giving you grace, but also being intentional about saying what it is that I need, because I know you have other obligations and different things. So that was good. Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so today we're talking about friendship and identity and finding your tribe, and I'm super excited to dive into this topic. Mm-hmm. So let's start with how has friendship influenced your identity as a woman?
How has friendship influenced So that question now at 40
period
is different.
Okay.
Than what, or that the answer at 40 would be different than that. I would say around 2021-ish, when I was in undergrad developing into a young woman, that whole thing. So how friendship helps with my identity, that's what I'm understanding, right?
Yes.
So for me, early 20s, to be transparent.
Yes.
Identity for me was a big thing just because of different things that went on during high school. Like high school, I would like to say I was amongst the popular crew, but the popular crew, not because of guys were gawking at me or anything like that. I was just amongst that crew, but I was the homie. I was the homegirl, like, Shontell.
Okay.
Put me in there with such and such.
Right.
So for me, identity was important back then, only because I was getting more and more comfortable with who I looked like. Mm-hmm. Physically, basically. Yeah. I had a best friend in high school. We were very opposite. But she was the yin to my yang kind of thing. So all throughout high school, I really was wanting friendships that meant something to me, because I felt like got played or used, for lack of better words. So then when I went into college, I had this thing of, I just want to work on me. I want to work on me. If I developed authentic friendships, because I knew I was meeting people from all over, going to a HBCU, come from all over. But in going through different relationships with my friends in undergrad kind of helped me understand who I am as a person, and who, when I needed to be strong, who I needed to lean on, that kind of thing, who I could trust and feel safe around, because I didn't have that. I felt like, aside from the best friend in high school.
Okay.
So it kind of, to help with my identity, it kind of helped me understand when I felt like I was in a safe environment and who I could be comfortable with and open up to. And I mean, connected with some really great people, but also reconnected with someone that I had gone to middle school with, who I'm, obviously very close to today.
Yeah. So then talk about it being in your 40s. Like, how has friendship influenced your identity in your 40s, since we've kind of covered your 20s?
So present day, I think I've learned to, in my friendships, I've had to create boundaries.
Okay.
And I've had to know when this friendship is beneficial for both me and the other person.
Okay.
And if it isn't, I'm okay with that. Like, I've learned, like, right now, there are some relationships where I would say we were close, different things happen. We may not have seen eye to eye. In one instance that I'm thinking of right now, it got to a point where I felt like I could respect their perspective, but it wasn't reciprocated. And so that caused a wedge.
Right.
And for a while, I had this thing where, and I'm still working on this through my therapy journey. So, where I would play back in my mind, what could I have said or done different to make this better? Even though I know, not to say I'm right all the time, but I know what I said I was firm in, and they weren't, and that's okay.
Right.
I just had to learn that that's okay. So now at 40, it's, I'm again, back to intentionality. That always stays with me. I'm very intentional. It's okay if that wedge happens and naturally just grows apart. I just believe that, whoever enters my life is truly there for whatever reason. God sent them there. If that is a season, it's a season. If that is a lifetime, it's a lifetime. And I'm okay with that. I would not say that would have been me. Like in my undergrad, even postgraduate, I wouldn't say that was me, because I'm always trying to hold on. Like, I want to keep this feeling that I had what I have with that person forever. But now, if it naturally grows apart, I'm okay with that. But I would love for it to stay. But if it grows apart, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It sounds like a part of your identity that you've discovered is like change, right? So like in your 20s, when we're younger, we're not as adaptive to change, because it can really shake us, because it's like, okay, like I was telling someone earlier, I'm like, everything for me starts in my mind as a process.
Yes.
And so nothing in my process came across as like, okay, you may have to pivot here, or you may have to.
Right.
And so that's what I hear. Like when you talk about now in my 40s, that I'm okay with how things may have to move.
If we have
shift,
to pivot, like,
because I know what I've put the intentionality behind these relationships. So yeah, that's really good. That's really good. I think about when you talked about like your 20s and being young, I believe that I too was like the home girl in all spaces. I think I believe I've always had this sense where people naturally trusted me and felt safe around me.
Right.
And so a part of my identity then was like, I believe I do really well at that for people, which could be a lot if you don't navigate it with boundaries.
Right. Right.
I know that a lot of my identity was like, also too, they're in certain spaces wanting to make sure that a person was like okay with everything. And that could also be a challenge, because they may not be okay with everything, but it doesn't make me a bad person.
Right.
And so as I've grown, being able to meet people who have kind of helped usher me into those spaces of like, it's okay if this don't work for you. Just tell me it doesn't work. And it also doesn't mean that the friendship can't work. It's just this space or this moment doesn't work and you can say no. And a lot of that attributes to like my upbringing, like not really ever being able to, I was the youngest of my siblings. And so always kind of like everyone had this expectation of me. I'm the youngest. I'm also like, oh, she's so mannerable and she's so this. And so I know that going over into relationships with friends, it was kind of like, okay, I got to be the mannerable person. I got to be this. I got to be that. And then it's not like, then you get to a space where you're like, okay, I need to do this differently. So that like for a long time, I didn't realize certain things was even exhausting for me.
Right.
Until like a light bulb came on. I'm like, oh, like this is a lot. Or like the moment where I was like, I felt like I used to be able to voice my opinion at one point. And then something happened and I don't remember, but something happened to where I stopped. And then something happened again where I was like, oh, I can talk. So now I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything. No, I don't like it. And so then there's this balance of my identity where I have to like, okay, tone it down a little bit.
Right.
Like, don't bark at everybody.
Right. I think we all go through that though. I think we all go through that, but I think we also navigate it and know, like you said, you have to do a self-reflection like, okay, Regina, stop.
Right.
Reel yourself in.
Let's reel this.
And I can't say that was me. Even 12 years ago, I don't even think that was me because I was one of those that, I'm listening to react. Listen to react because you're going to hear what I have to say.
Right, like now.
As opposed to, okay, again, respecting perspectives, that whole thing. But I think we all go through it. We just navigate how we handle that differently.
For sure.
Thank you, therapy.
Right. So I do have some friends that come to mind who, shout out to them, who has helped me to also see myself differently, like being able to see the other side of things, also being able to like, therapy has helped me with this too. I remember I had a session with my therapist. This was during COVID and she was like, you're doing all of these things. Why don't you just stop? She was like, you're overwhelmed and, a lot is happening with you right now. Just stop. And I was like, because a part of me was like, well, some of this applies to my friends. And if I stop, and so I remember I talked to my friend D, and I'm kind of like telling her about my session, and she was like, okay. And I didn't ask her for feedback. I just kind of had a pause, and she was like, how about we do this? She was like, all of these things that you're helping me with, don't do them anymore. Today we stop. And I was like, and she was like, yeah, just don't do them anymore. She was like, you can always come back and say, hey, I want to pick one of the 5 that I'm helping you with. But today, effectively, immediately, don't do them anymore. And so I was like, okay. I was like so hurt. Not because she had done that, but because I wasn't ready, right? But this is a part of my identity that she's helping me see. And so probably a month or 2 later, some other stuff came up. And I remember having a conversation with my sister. I'm like, hey, so I know I, agreed to help with this and this. In 30 days, I won't be doing it. What I can do is this and this.
Right.
And so after that, I started saying no to a lot of stuff. I was like, nope, can't do it. Or it would be like, instead of me agreeing, I'm like, hey, let me come back to that. Now, obviously, there were things that I was okay with committing to. But that moment between therapy and that particular friend, I was like, yeah. And so now I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. It's like, and so my friend will come and she'll ask me like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, I won't say no initially. I'll say, how much of me do you need for this stuff? And she's like, I can't get you to do anything. She was like, I empowered you to quit everything. And now she was like, and so that just felt really good to be able to do that. So thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about a time that maybe a friend has helped you see, has helped you see yourself in a different light. Have you ever had a situation where you trust a friend, you you hear their feedback and they've helped you to good or bad, good, bad, indifferent.
They've helped me
see yourself differently. Maybe within the friendship or within a different situation.
So I do have, yes, to answer. Yes. It wasn't, okay, this person didn't necessarily help me in our friendship, but it helped me just, but that means helping me like in different areas of my life.
So like it might not have been, it may not apply to a situation between you and this friend, but it could have been a conversation that y'all had that helped you in other situations.
Yes.
Which is her or him helping you see yourself differently.
Right. So I can think of a couple instances that kind of have the same theme, but I like to ask before I jump into whatever I have going on, like, listen, do you have the capacity to hear everything that I'm about to
unload?
Because I need to know. Because if you don't, I can respect that and like, listen.
That's good to do. That's good.
Yes. Do you have the capacity? 9 times out of 10 is be right back. Let me get some things situated and then I'm ready.
Like, or sometimes,
right. Or sometimes let's get on the video chat because, we have to, frequent, using our, video calls or whatever. So, but just allowing me to unload helped me in different situations. And she's good with putting things into perspective.
Okay.
Because I have this thing, again, like I said earlier, where something happens, be it a friendship, with family, work, whatever, I'll play back in my mind, like, what could I have said or done differently? And I've had to learn, like, no, Shontell, no, this is your experience and that's okay. So that's what she's helped me to graduate to, because for the longest time, and I mean the longest time, even through, talking to a therapist and talking to pastor friends, like that's been the biggest struggle for me. So until she put it in perspective, like, Shontell, this is literally your experience. Nobody else can, interject what they feel is happening to make you change whatever. This is your experience. So if this is what you feel happened, or these are the feelings that you're feeling, that's okay. And so, I don't know why, because, my therapist, I trust, of course, pastor friend, I trust, of course, but it wasn't until, and maybe it was a vulnerability because, she knows me inside and out. Her just saying it, like a light bulb just clicked on, and it's like, you know what?
You're right.
Yes, you're right, kind of thing. And it's one of those things where, like, for me, I know I get confirmation through things and just different things I may read, or someone randomly said something. So I don't know if it's in that moment, the vulnerability with emotions and everything, it just kind of, and her just listening, and letting me unload, kind of helped me, navigate that space.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so let's shift and talk about, have you ever thought about how your friends reflect a part of you?
How my friends reflect a part of me?
Yeah.
So like, that's a good question. I don't think I've actually thought about that.
Yeah. Right. So like, we spend a lot of time with some of our friends. We, some of them we might talk to every day. Some of them, we may have a friend at work that we see every day. And so all of these encounters and engagements with our friends, a part of it becomes a part of who we are, which is tacked to our identity. And so when I thought about it, I'm like, I wonder if just in general, people ever sit down and think about how the people that are closest, right? Because we all have like a pool of friends. We call it a friend web, right? But those people that we kind of talk to more regularly, we have within arm's reach of us. How do those friendships, or even the ones that are more extended friendships, how do those friendships reflect who we are, right? And vice versa. Like,
so that's what now I have thought about that.
Okay.
And the only reason, so when you said and vice versa, I haven't the first part of your question, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever sat and thought about it that way, but
okay, that's homework for you.
period. Homework. Let me write this.
Journal. I'll give it to you later.
Yeah, I know you will. But I have had a recent conversation with someone I'm close to from undergrad.
Okay.
Lives out in California or whatever. But have been going through some things, and it wasn't until she brought it to my attention, like, Shontell, you do these things, every time I talk to you, no matter how far, the time is that I talk, because, we each have a lot going on. But you've made me realize certain things. And I had a recent conversation with her about this. And it actually made me feel good, because I'm like, not that I have to hear that, but it's because important. It's important, and we're close.
Let's talk about it. Can you share like what she shared with you?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So she is a believer. I'm a believer or whatever. But because there are some, things going on personally with her and family, dynamics or whatever, she's just shared that, like, no matter what, you always find a way to find a scripture. Even if you don't have it in that moment, you'll be thinking about it at a random time, and you'll send it to me. And you just don't know how much that impacts me in that moment. And even if it's not a scripture, it's just something I've said. And so that's helped her with growing close, spiritually with God and everything, and her own journey that she's going on. So she said it, and then another friend of mine who's closer to me, when I say closer, proximity. Has said something very similar, like so back in 2019 was a very tough year for me, the second half. And I learned from those last 6 months of the year, like, if you think about somebody, reach out to them. Yeah. Because you just don't know. Yeah. You just reach out to them. And so ever since those last 6 months, anytime that's happened with a friend that's closer, I'll do it. And they said the same thing, like, oh my God, you don't understand what kind of day I was having, or this is something I've been dealing with, and you just sent this. And that's, really helped me to shape my perspective, how I need to think about things. And so hearing that, really made me feel good. So I know things that I do, it's helped them, but I don't think I've sat down myself. So when you give me my homework, just make sure you remember to do that, because I would like to. That's good journaling.
Yeah. So I asked that question. I talked to two young ladies recently, and they were talking to me about just like how I show up for people. Mm-hmm. And it was like, that has taught them. Mm-hmm. They're like, you show up for people in ways that we didn't even know people show up for people. And I'm like, how so? And so one young lady talks about, she's like, she has sisters. I think it's like 4 or 5 of them. And then she has a best friend, but they've not seen each other since prior to maybe last year. They hadn't seen each other since maybe college. Oh. And that was probably 1 or 2 times from college. Mm-hmm. She moved away. The friend still lives back home where she's originally from. And so last year, can't remember what happened, she ended up going to visit the friend. They actually ended up meeting to go see Beyonce for the Renaissance tour. And the friend had some things going on and almost didn't make it. Okay. But another person was like, no, you and this young lady, y'all have been really trying to get together. We're going to help you so that you can go. So then she ends up coming. They go to the concert. I mean, it was a very quick trip, but a good trip. And so I remember we were talking, and I'm like, telling her, I'm like, now that you know all of these things about that she's been navigating, I'm like, it is going to be very intentional for both of you guys with all of the knowledge that you know to make it happen. Because this friendship, because I asked, I'm like, how are y'all best friends and y'all don't talk? Like, who does that? Not a judgment. I just want to understand how that works. I'm not saying it has to be every day, but I'm like, at least for the young lady I know, I'm like, you're not that busy. I'm like, no, seriously. I'm like, you're not that busy in terms of things. Mentally, you may be busy because your mind may be going, but I'm like, you're not busy with things in your life. Like, there are certain dynamics that you don't have, so you do have the time. It's really more about just committing to do it. Yeah. I'm not saying you have to talk to this person on the phone every day. That isn't your thing. But you could send a text. Send a text. don't have an expectation of them responding, because sometimes the blessing or the care in friendship is just doing it. Right? Even though friendship is reciprocal, but it takes one step, right? So
right.
All of that to say, like, the way that I have shown up for friends and she's been able to witness that has allowed her to be like, you know what, I need to pivot. I need to like really sit and reflect and see how can I show up for a person. And like, to your point about, you know, do you have the capacity? I'm not saying, like, I'm a person, I'm on the phone all the time. I'm not saying it's a good thing to do. I mean, I be tired sometimes, but for her, I'm not like saying do this, but I am saying if you can go, go. Because the next time you get a phone call, you may be forced to go. Right. And so she's been doing better. She's like, you know, we try to check in every 2 weeks or once a month. And I'm like, that's a start, you know, because again, the friend may also not want to be bothered every day, all day, every week. She might be like, well, let's do it once a month. That's all I got for you because or whatever. So that's good. So friendship, identity, I was thinking about like some of the things that friendship does for people or myself. And so a lot of times I don't think we realize how like friendship validates us. And if you agree or don't agree, let me know, right? Because we can talk about it. But I think about like friendship does validate people, right? Because a friend and I were talking about how we oftentimes as friends, we want to know our place in our friendships, especially in our friendship circle, right? And so a lot of times, you know, you hear people like, well, I was upset because I didn't get the invitation. And so not getting an invitation for one person could be like, whew, I'm off the hook this time. Like, they don't need me to do anything. But for another person, it could be like, yo, I wasn't invited and I expect to get every invitation. Because some people are like, I want an invitation even if I know I'm not coming. Right? And so have you ever had a moment or felt like being validated in any way in a friendship was something that you felt like you needed, or you're like, you might not have noticed that it was a thing?
Yeah, I don't think I've, like you just said, I don't think I've ever noticed that was a thing. Like, I feel like if I'm on said friend's mind and they're doing this thing or going to this place, having this event, and I'm invited, cool. But if I don't think I felt like I wasn't included when I felt like I should have been. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay. I just, no. I don't think so. Nothing comes to mind.
Okay. No, it doesn't have to. I'm just asking. Because again, I know that, you know, a part of our identity with our friends, like I always tell people, like, we don't choose our family that we were born into, but our friends, for the most part, we get to navigate what that looks like. We get to be like, you know, this person is going to be my person because you've built rapport. You have spent time with the person. I was listening to something the other day that says to get to like tier 1 or like level 1 with the person in terms of friendship, the average person spends about 34 hours investing time. Okay. And so when you hear 34 hours, you're like, that's a lot. Yeah. But it's really not. Like, so it can sound like a lot because we're navigating so many things. But when you think about, like, it could be, let's say you meet a person, 24 hours is in one day. So 34 hours is easy to add up to, but then just thinking about little pockets of time that you do invest, right? And so how that like influences who you are and how that like attributes to your identity. So next question. In a friend group, in a friend circle, have you, let's say it's a group, so like you have a group of friends where y'all are like the group, right? In that group, have you ever felt like you didn't know your place, or you did feel like, hey, I know my place, and it's the same with each person, or is it different? Like, how has that been for you?
No. So if my immediate response is like, I know my place with my friends individually.
Right. Okay.
If we're amongst everybody, I kind of feel like, no, That's a really good question. Like, I know my place individually with my friends.
Right. When y'all are, let's say y'all are spending time individually, that's one-on-one.
Yeah.
But when you guys are, let's say your fam 5 group, right?
Mhm.
Let's say when you guys are 4 or 5, when you're in the group together, is there, like, are you the same in the group for everyone? Do you feel like you're offering different things? Like, how does that feel? Because they're your tribe.
Mhm.
They're part of your tribe.
So amongst the group, I think amongst the group, I feel like I'm the same.
Okay.
Individually though, I think there are different layers
and dynamics, yeah.
And dynamics when it comes to us individually, because how I am with one of them is not the same
with
the others. But that's okay, and it's
sure.
Respect. Like, it's not a okay, y'all, ladies. Let's the 4 of us come together and let's talk about, okay, this is how I am.
No.
It's not like that. It's cohesive. Like, when we're all together, we all kind of know each other's personalities.
For
like,
sure.
even when we come, the times that we do come together, I think we kind of just gel the same way we do individually, but individually there are very different layers, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Within that particular group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I ask because I get people who ask me all the time about, like, when I'm in group spaces with friends versus one-on-one, and they're like, how does that feel for you? And for me, in terms of, like, my tribe and identity, I feel like I'm the same person, just, again, different layers, because people require different things, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Like, I can cut up with one of them. 2 I can cut up.
Right.
The other one kind of chill. So, like, it's like, but when we're together, everybody just,
yeah,
we have our own individual personality. But yeah, there are different layers when you are individual. But I think that's for anybody,
Well, I think it's important to share that so that people understand that a part of your identity doesn't mean that you aren't being real.
Right.
It's just that you have these friends who,
can cut up with.
Right.
Something like the chill.
Or the cut up looks different.
The cut up looks different.
It looks different.
There's layers to that too.
Right. And so it's like, but that is a part of, like, being able to navigate. Because some may say, well, if I can't be all of who I am with everybody, then I'm not being authentic to myself. And I'm like, I don't think that.
I don't think that's true.
Like, I have a girlfriend in Texas. Well, a few in Texas, but one of my friends in Texas, she's very adventurous. So if I go visit her either in Texas or somewhere else, she wants to do all of the excursions. Like, we're going to go to the museum. We might go rock climbing. We might go zip lining, snowboarding, whatever. Like, we're going to do all of these things, right? And it's going to be a chilled afternoon. We may go to dinner. We may go to a concert. We may go to church, just different things, right? Not that I can't go to church with all of my friends, but those are just like a dynamic between she and I. And then there's another friend where we may, go to somewhere. We may go out of the country, and it's like, okay, it's time to turn up.
Right.
Whatever the turn up looks like. So
right.
being able to know that this is still a part of who I am, and I get to show up in those friendships and be like, still be good, right? Because sometimes it could be a thing where, like, okay, I'm not okay because we didn't do anything. And I'm like, well, that, like, for me, it's not that. So that's why I'm asking, like, being able to be in certain friendships and spaces with your friends where you're like, hey, this works for me. So anything else you want to add?
To that?
To any of this?
No, not anything I want to add. When you asked early on, I think it might have been the first question about the identity, how your friendship
the
reflection and that
how
do
you
thing.
Reflect in your friends, and how do they reflect in you?
Yeah, I because it kind of stayed with me, so I want to make sure.
Oh, very good.
I don't know why, but there are a few, not like a handful, but there are a few friendships that did not flourish. And I think that kind of attributes to identity as well.
Did it not? So do we say that it didn't flourish because the friendships have dissolved, or like it flourished for a time?
Both.
Okay.
I feel like, and again, that just goes back to like having to graduate and understand that whole saying about, some people are in your life for a season, reasons and seasons, But I do think those reasons and seasons have helped me in my own identity too.
Good.
And some have dissolved. And some are just, I guess waiting in the water,
Yeah.
I
think that, so something that I've been thinking about is like how we define flourishing, right? And so being able to give things its space, right? Because a lot of times we're like, there's a cut, it's done, stamp of approval, we'll never go back to it. And we'll have to talk about this where in another space about like what forgiveness and reconciliation could look like. Reconnecting and re-engaging. But again, I think it's all a part of your identity. Like, I think that even friendships that do dissolve or that end and they're no more still attributes to who you are. Like,
absolutely.
You've grown from it. So when I think about it, I'm like, okay, there are friends where a part of my identity, they have helped me to advocate for things.
Right.
Being able to advocate and say what it is within the friendship with them. They're like, say this, right? Do this. Like, it may not feel good, but a part of who you are going to be and who you're striving to be requires that we create this space for you. It may not be safe, but we create this space for you. Like, we have this, I need it to be safe. And I had someone tell me like, nope, it's not a safe space. It is a brave space for you to be able to, I'm giving you time and opportunity to say what you need to say. I may not even hear you in the moment, but I'm still giving it to you because you need to be brave. And I think that is a part of my identity that I will say attributes from my friendships. Like having friends who are like, okay, just don't do anything for me for the next 3 months. And I'm like, that's awkward. They're like, nope, you're fine. I don't need you to help me do anything. This is going to be helpful for you. Or like having a friendship where the friend basically told me we could not be friends anymore for a period of time. And it sounds harsh. We're friends. But there was like almost a year where we didn't hang out. We barely talked. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is devastating for me. But a part of that attributed to who I am today. And it strengthened me in a way that I didn't realize. And I didn't even know that I needed to be strengthened in that friendship. And so coming back around, we were able to, I'm able to show up differently. Still being myself, but being a stronger and greater version of myself because that friend was like, we need a break from each other.
Right. Yeah. Now that is a conversation for like, another time. But I just wanted to bring that up. Because like you said, I do believe that attributes to my identity and like the whole, I guess reconciliation that's a whole nother topic. But
yes.
we can talk about that.
No. So we'll do an offline call with that. I appreciate you for coming today. We're going to go into a space where I do quote of the day, friendship quote of the day. So I'll tell you the quote and then you tell me what you think it means or what it means to you.
Okay.
Okay.
What it means to me.
So the quote says, a faithful friend is a sturdy shelter. He that has found one has found a treasure.
That means to me, a friend that can be strong when I'm not, or I can, be strong for them when they're not. Again, that safe space, being intentional and continuously building that relationship. Ins and outs.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Period.
All of it.
Very good.
I love it. That was good.
Yes. You know, I try.
Do.
So thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate the conversation that we had. And obviously we can talk for hours about all of the things. But I just wanted to let you know I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting me. As always, tell the people how they can connect with you.
The people can connect with me. The people can connect with me. Personal Instagram _just Sean _JUSTSHON. And like Gigi mentioned at the beginning, I am a children's book author. So I write children's books. I'm building an activity book. That is Shontell Books. If you just look up on Instagram, it's long, y'all, but on Instagram, show SHO _N_tell books. If you can't remember that, Shontell Woods, children's book author. Thank you for having me. This was lovely. I really appreciate it. I love the questions too. I really need that journal prompt. Seriously.
I got
for
you.
Real. Like offline.
I got you. Okay, so as we conclude this episode of Friendships That Flourish, we're reminded the value of authentic connections and how friendships enrich our lives and foster a sense of belonging. I want to encourage you to apply some of the insight that you've heard here today. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, you can follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Friends That Flourish, the podcast, and then you can also email us any questions or topics you want to hear at friendsthatflourish@gmail.com. Bye. Thanks for listening to Friendships That Flourish, the podcast with your host, Regina Nicole. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms and be sure to listen to us on YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify. Don't forget to email us any of your topics and questions at friendsthatflourish@gmail.com.